I'm curious with Cedric and then Rhea and Marcus, are medical redshirts a possibility for them, or kind of how much have you kind of looked into that?
For sure. I mean, from my understanding, I think all three should be able to get one. We'll have to do the paperwork, and I know our compliance and our trainers are working on that, and they'll leave that option. I'm sure that'll be an option for them.
Okay. With Cedric, I know this is way down the road, but he also tested the NBA waters coming into this season. Has he like expressed interest in coming back if he does get that option, or kind of what's his kind of I guess openness to that right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so far down the road, and I think you get when you start getting caught up with decision making that far down the road, it's tough. He's for sure on a bunch of NBA radars. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think he's averaging like what 18 7 and 4 or something like that, or 17 7 and 4. So if he gets healthy in time to go get some pre-draft workouts, I wouldn't be shocked if he's put himself in a position to get drafted. If he doesn't, I think there's definitely some it's going to be an option to come back here, and we'll figure that out.
All right, we'll throw it to Percy Allen of the Seattle Times.
Hey, Derek, Coach, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, just how important was it for like you to like keep this game on the schedule?
It was huge. I mean, when I talked to Ike and Ann in our admin, that was one of my first questions when we were talking scheduling. Like, how's this going to work? We got to keep this thing alive. I think that's something that we've tried with all these Northwest teams, is to make sure that we're doing right by what I think is good for college basketball and playing these local teams. And I think this is a heck of a game.
And so, obviously, it's a 2-year deal. But can you speak to like the future of the series after that?
I can't. We haven't signed anything. I know Danny and I have both been very busy being in year one, and so we got to sit down and talk about that and how we want to do that.
Hey, and then just in terms of just you've got some players, and I guess obviously for yourself as well, it's a bit of a homecoming. Just how do all of you guys, maybe even yourself, how do you sort of manage those emotions? You've got Nick coming home, you've got Isaiah coming home, and yourself coming home. Just how do you sort of manage all of that, which I'm sure you're going to have some people in the crowd there?
I think we'll have a good amount of Coug fans out there at the game, and it's going to be an emotional game for some of these guys, as it should be. It's a rivalry game. It's what it's about. Like, I think we got to be able to harness that energy and use it for the right things, and make sure we're being a little more physical and being a little bit more locked in on our coverages and assignments. Because it can flip on you, right? You can start getting worried about all these other things, and maybe you're not playing as hard now. You're not focused on the right things, and so I think we put our guys in positions so far this year to play big games, to play against great opponents, and so hopefully that prepared us for what's coming tomorrow.
And then for you, like for you being this your like first time in this sort of rivalry game, just how important is it for you?
I mean, I'm excited about it. Like, every game's important, every practice is important. The thing we've been preaching all season is like, shoot, today's practice is the most important day of the year, like, because it's the one we have right now. Well, tomorrow's game is the most important game of the year because it's the next one up, and we got to come in and show that we've gotten better, and we can play a style of game like UW's going to bring to the table, and I'm just excited about that opportunity.
And then obviously, I'm sure you're not going to give anything away, but just a quick sort of scouting report on like those guys. What are the things that they do that'll keep you up tonight?
Overall, is their physicality. I think the games that they've won, they tend to be the more physical team. Number two is that they're very disruptive on defense. They do a great job mixing up defenses and trapping and mixing up ball screen coverages and zones. And so I think, are we going to be able to adjust to that offensively, and are we going to be able to answer the bell physically and be ready to fight?
There you go. All right, coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jamie Vinnick, Coug fan.
Hey, Coach, how's it going?
Doing great.
Good, good, good. I want to ask you about Tomas, just kind of his role. Obviously, we've seen increased with the various injuries, but it just feels like he's responded well. And you've talked about how his pro background in Iceland maybe has kind of helped him out in that. How have you kind of see him step into a role where now he's being asked to play 10 to 15 minutes instead of just a couple minutes late in games and garbage time?
Yeah, I think with Thomas, we've been really big on just making sure he's playing confident, playing aggressive. He's got good instincts on both sides of the ball. Like you mentioned, he played a high level of professional basketball in Iceland, so he's played on big stages. He's played with physical players and grown men, and like what he's done has been really impressive. He wasn't here with us this summer because he was doing some stuff with the national team, and so he came in about 2.5 months later than everyone else. Uh, he got really sick at one point in the fall and lost a little bit of weight and kind of messed with his rhythm and really kind of got back into his own about a week into the season once the games actually started. And so we're finally seeing Thomas back to where, he was still climbing and working. Like I expect him to have even bigger games and bigger impacts. He's had some days in practice where he's attacked that first team and won some games, and he's an exciting guy that we're just going to see keep growing and keep getting better.
Obviously, I think fair to say Nate and Isaiah maybe two of the most emotional, and not saying that's a bad thing, players on the team. This game tomorrow obviously has various meanings for them. Nate going back to his previous school, Isaiah to his hometown. How do you kind of keep or help to kind of temper their emotions and keep them locked in without trying to take away the edge and the fire that they play with?
Again, we just got to harness it. Like they've gotten more mature as the season's gone on about how to handle those emotions because I mean those guys are very fierce competitors. Like there's days in practice where I gotta call them at 7 or 8 at night because they're so pissed they lost the game during practice just to check in on and make sure they're good. Like, so they put themselves in situations this year where they put a ton of pressure on themselves. They've been ready to compete. They've had an edge, and they've responded well to that. Like, I just think we got to trust that they're learning and their mind's in the right place and they're not overthinking things. And when those two are aggressive and they're playing in the moment, they're as good as anyone in the country.
And then I think it was a few weeks ago we talked about there was a 2 or 3 game stretch where Ethan had taken just about 3 or 4 total shots. Obviously, we've seen him be more aggressive the last couple weeks. How much do you think Cedric's injuries contributed to that? And how much have you kind of had to, kind of encourage him to hunt his shot a little bit more and obviously play selfless but not too selfless to where he's passing up open looks?
Yeah, I think a lot of that was knee. Like I don't think I did a great job during his stretch where he was shooting 2 or 3 shots of finding him places where he could be aggressive. I think we had a couple games where Cedric wasn't as aggressive, and we had a couple other guys that weren't necessarily being assertive. And sometimes Ethan gets lost in the shuffle for me because like he's so steady, he's always the same guy, he always has the same approach. And sometimes I start coaching other guys, and I don't focus on him enough. And I think for those 2 or 3 games, I could have done a better job. And once we did talk and show him film and show him where he could be more assertive, I think he's responded to that really well. And like obviously there's more opportunity with Cedric being out, but I think for the most part it's mostly him finding his moments in offense and hopefully our staff doing a little better job of getting him some touches.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck tomorrow.
Appreciate it.
All right, we'll throw it to Dylan at the Daily Evergreen and then come back around for some follow-ups.
Duke fan, but hey,
Sorry,
Coach, how you
excuse me.
doing today? No, it's all good. Coach, kind of just tagging off of what Jamie said about Tomas, and kind of throwing in Case in there. The last couple games, double-digit minutes that Case has played in, as well as Tomas. Is this obviously not the expectation that you guys had at the start of the year, but what's it been like to see these two true freshmen kind of thrown into the fire?
I've been impressed with both of them, and what Case did last game to come in and dig out 2 offensive rebounds and make a couple really physical plays defensively. Just first game back from an injury and building rhythm, I thought that was really impressive. And so I think coming into this season, I knew and the coaching staff knew in the back of our heads like most likely it's gonna be tough for Thomas and Case to play, but they're also great players. I can see a world where they beat someone out and they do find their way into the rotation and build their way in because they're that good. And so when they were playing this summer, when they were going back and forth with Case, especially in the summer, Thomas more in the fall, when they were going back and forth with the starters, we could see some potential there this year. That's why we didn't even blink. We didn't even think about redshirting those two. And usually we have that conversation with most freshmen, and we knew they would help us at some point. We knew they were ready. And so the opportunity unfolded for them, where some guys got hurt ahead of them, and they've made the most of it. And I just think like what you guys have seen is just kind of scratching the surface. They're capable of more, and I think by the end of the season they're going to be really really aggressive and confident out there.
Was Case ahead of schedule defensively, and speaking just not to his shooting, was he ahead of schedule on on everything besides his shot?
From my like, I told Case this yesterday or 2 days ago. Like since day one with Case, it's never been his shooting that I've been worried about. Like I know he's gonna go shoot the ball. We can always trust that. And you're absolutely right. Like his defense and physicality was definitely better than I expected walking in the door. His IQ is kind of the main thing that I was most impressed with. Like he's a little bit like Rain Man. He can pick things up right off the bat. There's some other things, there's subjects that he may not be the best at, but
uh,
he can come in and he can tell you what we're running and why we're doing this and how the 5-on-0 works for all 5 players. And that's a huge deal in our program and every program really. But like he's able to pick things up and he's able to adjust really quickly because of that.
And tagging off Case, one last thing with him. I know it's not like a homecoming for him tomorrow, but you guys did, kind of come down to Danny Sprinkle, and obviously he was still at Utah State at the time. But is the game a little bit more important for Case to tomorrow as well?
I can see him having a little motivation there, but again, like all these guys, they're so locked in on trying to get better and trying to focus on what we need. Like I thought about that with Case a couple weeks ago, and I haven't even talked to him about it. So I'll check in with him there. Uh, and he's just so locked in on what he's got to do. I haven't even put myself there.
And my last question, sorry. Coach Kyle Smith beforehand had a pretty big reach internationally speaking. Looking at your rosters at Eastern Washington and here, obviously that seems like it's a key. What goes into kind of scouting internationally and trying to find guys that maybe the P4 programs or bigger teams just aren't looking at?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. We've definitely tried to make that um a niche for us where we can come in and steal some players. And really like for me personally, early on in my career as an assistant coach, I didn't have the relationships in some of these AAU programs, but I did have some ties with some guys and friends overseas, and so I tried to do that and build some relationships. We've got a assistant coach, Pedro Garcia Rosado, who's from Spain, who's done a great job building those relationships. And like for us, it's just can we find 5 or 6 guys that we trust, that can evaluate talent, and then once we do evaluate those names every summer, every spring, we're going to go over there a couple times and make sure that we're doing our due diligence and seeing them once or twice because it fits our style. Like the international style is very concept based, offensively, defensively. It's very physical. I think it matches up well with what we do, and it's a little bit outside the box, and that's what you need out here in Pullman is to find different ways to find it to find those diamonds in the rough.
Coach, thanks for your time and good luck tomorrow.
Appreciate it.
All right, we got time for a couple more quick questions here. We'll throw it back to Greg Woods.
Hey, Isaiah is actually up over, excuse me, 40% from three, which I mean that's kind of his game, obviously. But I'm curious, like the shots he's taking, are those kind of what you expected him to kind of be taking at this point in his career? I'm curious, like for that shot diet, like how much does that kind of match up with what you thought he might be kind of capable of this year?
Yeah, I always knew he was capable of being a great scorer. I talked with him and his dad. Like I don't know when it's going to be. If it's going to be early year, if it's going to be late season. If it'll take some time. But he's a guy that I expect to be an all conference level scorer. And I think with as a shooter in our offense, it takes some time to understand what the right shot is, when to hunt your shot, when to hunt your drives. Um, and it's not an easy thing to do because we give our guys so much freedom. And last year, I think it might have been easier for him coming in the game. Like he knew he had to go score if he was going to stay in the game. He knew they were going to run a set and he was going to get a shot right here, and that's what he would do. And so I think it's a little more simple that way. But for him now, I want him to be a complete player. I want him to put pressure on the rim early in the games and early in the possession. Obviously, if he can get a little bit of separation, I always want him shooting it. But it's just kind of finding that balance and understanding when to take those early transition threes, when to attack the paint. And that's a process. Like um, everyone just sees Curry hit these crazy shots when he's playing with the Warriors, but most of the time he's not just stepping in the game and shooting a 35-footer. Like there's rhythm that built into that, the team, the flow of the game, and so we're talking about that constantly as a team, not just with Isaiah. And he's embracing that, and he's gotten better. And I think you look at his percentages on the year, like he's shooting 40% now. 5 or 6 games ago, that wasn't the case, and I think that's just because he's getting more comfortable in our offense and getting more comfortable with how we do things.
Well, you're talking to a big Warriors fan, so that is music to my ears to hear that. With Isaiah on
Right.
defense, you mentioned his defense the other day. Um, what is he kind of doing better on that end, and how much of that is him kind of doing that on his own? And are you guys having to get on him, at all on that end?
Isaiah?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's been Mr. Steady on the defensive end. I've been really impressed since day one. Like I was just saying this the other day, like I've always viewed Isaiah as a scorer, and in high school he's pretty skinny, and I didn't really see exactly what he could do defensively. And now he's got so much burst, he's got great instincts, he's got an edge and a focus on defense that is what you need. I mean, that's 90% of defense is the attitude you have. And like we got him on the leading scorer last game versus Missouri State, and there was one set that we wanted to maybe switch something to blow it up, and he made a face because like let me blow this screen up, like let me guard this guy, like, and I love that. Like that's exactly what we want in a player that wants to go lock down the other team's best player, and so he has that mindset, which is just half the battle.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
All right, and we'll wrap it up with Percy Allen.
Hey, Coach. I should probably know you guys' history a bit more, but is there any history sort of on the court or off the court with you and Sprinkle when during his time at Utah State, at Montana, if like recruiting battles or just on the court stuff or just anything that you can share?
Yeah, I've been going against Danny Sprinkle since I first started being a head coach. He was at Montana State my first 2 years. Um, They won the conference my first year. We won the conference, but they won the tournament my second year. We've had some really good games against each other. He always does a great job scouting our stuff and mixing things up defensively. And we've had a good friendship and been able to talk throughout those times as we're coming up in the Northwest. But he's a heck of a coach, and it'll be fun to play him in this setting.
And then just my last one here. Have you gotten a sense of just what this game may mean to your maybe alum and fans? I mean, it's like one thing to beat like Eastern and Fresno, but when the Cougs beat the Huskies, it seems to be a really big deal there.
I've heard from a ton of people this week about wishing me good luck and asking about the guys, and it's definitely a different level than it had been the rest of the season. And spending the last 17 years in Spokane, there's plenty of Coug alums out there that make sure the world knows when we beat the Huskies.
Did you go to the Apple Cup at all?
No, I couldn't go this year. I can't remember what we had going on, so I didn't make it.
Well, that kind of showed you some things there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Coach. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Go Cougs.